Welcome to Master Theros Uncut, where we discuss the issues others are too timid to discuss. And now, here's James Theros. Okay, we are live with another episode of Master Theros Uncut. I'm your host, James Theros. I'm going to talk about a very important and probably a little bit of a touchy subject today. We're going to talk about dealing with depression. So there are a lot of causes for depression and its close cousin, anxiety, and we're going to talk about those today. But before I get into some of the bullet points that I've made here, I wanted to tell you a little bit about a time in my life where I really struggled with some depression. I guess I should back up a little further and explain a little bit about my upbringing, because I've dealt with it several times in my life. My parents got divorced when I was 5 years old, and pretty much from that time I was shuffled back and forth between my mother and my father. Didn't have a very stable upbringing. I had a stepfather who was abusive and a stepbrother who was abusive as well. And I moved around a lot, so I didn't grow up in a very stable environment, and I constantly had to, reestablish myself in a new community or at a new school quite frequently when I was growing up, and that's a tough thing for a kid to have to do. And I did at the time. I didn't know any better. I didn't understand. I just dealt with it the best that I could. And there were many times where I would come home crying because I got bullied or teased or made fun of or something, and it became a difficult thing for me to want to go back to school the next day. But I got into a little habit where I knew I wasn't going to be at a school long, so that was kind of my light at the end of the tunnel, knowing that I would probably be moving before that year ended or within a year or two, and I could deal with it for a certain period of time. So that was kind of my upbringing, and that was pretty much my entire upbringing from 5 years old up till I moved out at 18 years old. A lot of instability, and that can be one cause of depression, is just having an unstable environment to be part of. But one of the things there were a lot of things that happened along the way. I mean, when I opened my martial arts school, I opened in a little, it was called a Lions Club. It was a little tiny room, and moved around from that. I moved from that school to my first commercial building, and I remember when I moved into that commercial building, we had a big snowstorm one year, and I came in Monday morning to open the school, or Monday afternoon, whatever it was, and the snow we had a huge snowstorm. This is back in 1996 at the time, I believe, and the snow was piled up on the roof, and it crashed in and caved in the roof, so that when I opened the door, all the snow was like piled 4 or 5 foot high inside my school. And I had no money to repair it. I don't even know how we repaired it, honestly. I think the landlord probably took care of that. But that was one kind of depressing time. A second instance happened in 2003. Let me tell you, this is kind of a number 2 on the list. In 2003, I went through a lot of turmoil that year. It was the year that we had a tornado hit in 2002, October of 2002, and destroyed the school right after I had canceled the insurance on our building. Shortly thereafter, I went through a divorce, and right around in the same time, I made the decision to form my own organization and leave my master instructors organization that I'd been with for 20 years. So that was a source of a lot of turmoil back then, and in some ways depression, but not as much as the big one. So at that time, I had a lot of problems dealing with these challenges coming at me, but I had something to look forward to, which is what I'm going to talk about today as one of my methods of dealing with it. But I had something to look forward to. I had a mission that I was on, and that's what really kind of brought me out of that situation, and it's gotten better. But something happened in 2012 that really rocked my world, and it really sent me spiraling down into a major state of depression, probably the most depressed I've ever been in my entire life. So if that describes you, if you're in that situation right now, I understand. But let me tell you a little bit about it first. So in 2012, I decided to come out of retirement and go compete again as part of my test for my next black belt degree. and I went flying all around the country, and I was having a blast the entire year. We had just purchased, or not purchased, but we had just moved into this 12,000 square foot location. And we basically, when I say purchased, I mean that's because we put every single penny we had, every penny of our nest egg was put into there, and all of our hopes and dreams were in this place, and it was going to be the biggest, best martial arts school in the state of Indiana and maybe in the Midwest. And I mean, I was very, very proud of this place. And the moment that I took possession of this place, so this is actually 2011 leading into 2012. The moment that I took possession of this place, I mean the very day that I got the keys to the place, my main instructor, my employee, left his key in the mailbox and left me to teach all the classes, which I was not prepared for. At the very same time, at 40, I don't know what I was, 42 or 43 years old. I'm 47 now, so 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 2000, yeah, so 5 years ago about is when all this took place. I decided to get braces. Some crazy decision. I had this one tooth that was a little crooked, and I wanted to get it fixed, and my bottom teeth were a little crooked, and I really wanted to get them fixed because I was pretty self-conscious about that. So I went to the dentist and got these called invisible braces, and so I moved into this big location. My instructor quits on me. I have brand new braces, and every time I'm trying to talk, the room was so big that you couldn't hear anything. There was so much of an echo that I had to yell when I would try to teach, and it would cut my lips up. And so I was depressed about that. And then I was having kids, my students, make fun of me for, oh, Master Theros, you have braces. When did you get braces? Why did you get braces? And I was very self-conscious about that as well. So that was the beginning of my depression. I didn't realize it, but I mean that's when it kind of started. And then in 2012, as I said, I decided to go on this big competition experience again for my test, and I was having a blast. And I competed with those braces and things now, thinking about it. That was pretty risky because I did sparring. At the end of the year, I lost a lot of students that year because of all the things that have happened. I'm not going to go into all the details that happened, but just understand I ended up losing about $250,000 that year. And you want to talk about something to put you in depression? My goodness, I had no idea how we were going to survive this, and I thought maybe this is really the end, and how am I going to bounce back from this? But obviously, you know the end of the story because I'm sitting here today. So at the very end of 2012, I got this really crazy idea to go have a physical. I wanted to determine, what my physical shape was at 40 some years old. 43, I think, is what it was now, or 42 maybe. And I hadn't had a physical since I was in the military, and so I wanted to go have a physical. And in the process of having the physical done, I had my blood drawn, and there was an episode, and I passed out, and there's a whole big story behind that. But basically, I thought I was going to die. My hair is a lot whiter now as a result of that. I mean, that was it's probably the scariest day of my entire life, and I called and tried to put all my affairs in order. I was very stressed out at that moment. But I fell into a deep depression after that, and so pretty much for the whole year of 2013, I was in a severe depression mode. I didn't want to be around anybody. I thought the world was caving in on me. I thought everybody was out to get me. Even if it was sunny outside, it seemed like it was gloomy outside. It seemed like everywhere I went, there was a black cloud above my head. It was raining. And, it was just a miserable experience. And I was very short with people. And I was even short with my Grand Master one time. And, I won't go into all the details, but I realized there was something wrong. Well, it turned out it's having this physical, even though they got several vials of blood out, they didn't get it all. They determined that I was low on testosterone. And so that was the first thing they did, was put me on testosterone replacement therapy with these creams that you would rub into your arm and things. And I'm no longer on it, but that was one of the first things that I did proactively to kind of help myself get out of this, because I realized that I just wasn't in a good state of mind, and I didn't want to be around people, and I was losing more students because of that. And that's an important message right there. I was losing a lot of students because of my state of mind. It affected how I interacted with them. And so if you're dealing with some of these things in your own life, and you're thinking, financially, how are you going to make ends meet, or people don't like you for some reason, or you seem to be very short, or you're just always sad about things, then you might be dealing with depression, and maybe you have a friend that's dealing with depression. And that's kind of the backstory. And so I was very, very, very severely depressed. I actually lost probably 25 pounds that year, with doing nothing. I mean nothing. I didn't want to exercise. I didn't want to eat. I just didn't want to do anything. I wanted to just stay by myself. And I did for pretty much the whole year. And it was a miserable experience, but I decided I didn't want that to be how things were for the rest of my life. So I had to proactively figure out some ways to combat that depression. And so I've got a list of things that some of these things I did, some of them I didn't do, but if that ever happened again, I would use these things because I've dealt with a lot of students in my life. I don't know how many thousands of students I've helped to train, but I've dealt with depression on and off and anxiety with many of my students over the years. And so a lot of these things are things that I recommend in my classes and that I would recommend to them individually. So I'm just going to share those with you. I think I have 19 of these things that you can do to help bring yourself out of a depressed state of mind. And, I have to preface this by saying I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you to take medication. I can't tell you to stop taking medication. I don't claim any professional opinion in that regard. But I will give you a professional opinion from the role of a teacher and from somebody who's counseled people and somebody who's been through these things himself and used some of these techniques to help himself get better. And so, one of the things that if you pay attention a lot to reading magazines and health and fitness magazines and probably psychology magazines and other things that have to do with mental health, meditation is one of the best things you can do because meditation is really self-reflection. And it gives you the opportunity because inside of our minds, we're telling ourselves these stories. And so back in 2013, my story was kind of a negative one. And I just thought nobody liked me. Nobody wanted to be around me. Everything I said was negative. And I would think these things and say these things out loud. And that I got more of it as a result. And it just became a self-fulfilling prophecy. So when you sit down and you meditate, you learn to block out all the distractions and you have time to reflect on your story and to determine whether it's right or wrong and whether you want it to continue in that direction or you want to redirect that path so your story's a better one. And so practicing meditation, even for 2 minutes a day, is a very healthy thing. So obviously the longer you can go, the better it's going to be, and the more consistent you are with it, the more your results you're going to get out of it. But it has to be something you train yourself to do. And so a very quick crash course in meditation would be just to sit still with your eyes closed. You can sit in a chair like I'm sitting in now. You can sit in the famous meditation position. You can lie down and close your eyes. You can do this when you wake up in the morning and just keep your eyes closed and do it. But focus on counting your breaths until you're totally relaxed and in a calm space. And then in this case, I would meditate on why I'm feeling the way I am and what brought me to that place. When you can do that and you can analyze it, it's just like looking at a crime scene and being able to backtrack and figure out what happened. And then you can figure out ways to not keep it from happening again or to come out of it. So meditation is one of the things I recommend for anybody suffering from depression. And learn to appreciate the good things in your life, even though you might think that everything's going wrong and you've got that black cloud over your head like I did. There are rainy days and there are sunny days, and that's true for all of us. And if we just hang on one more day, things get better. They don't always stay the same. They don't always stay positive. They don't always stay negative. And that's an important thing for us to remember, is that in the words of the Bible, I forget the verse, but this too shall pass. And you have to keep that in mind if you're going through a troubled time. There's probably a time in your past where things were better. And you have to understand that life is cyclical, and that's going to happen as well. And so for people that suffer from depression, that's probably one of the best things you can do is meditate on the good things and understand that this too shall pass. And if you have a brighter outlook on things, and believe me, it's tough to do when you're suffering from it, because I'll tell you what, the last thing I wanted to hear from my wife or anybody else is that I was feeling sorry for myself or I'm spending too much time alone and you need to get in there and get active. And I didn't want to hear those things because I was pretty much enjoying my time alone and just being one with my feelings. So meditation, I highly recommend it. Okay, number 2, and this may sound like self-explanatory, but it's going to kind of be an important one, and that's to listen to upbeat, inspirational music. When I'm feeling blue, when I'm feeling bad, I'm feeling depressed about things, I go to things like Eye of the Tiger, things that or some hard rock stuff that from the 80s that was kind of like fun, happy stuff, or just happy sounding music from the 80s or 90s that really get me back into the kind of happy mood. So inspirational music as well. There are certain songs, again, like Eye of the Tiger, that have an inspirational message to them, and that's an important thing for you, because music is like a soundtrack to our lives. If you really pay attention around you, you're going to see and discover just how much music is a part of our lives. I mean, you get into an elevator, there's usually music. You go into a cafe, there's music. You go into a gym to work out, there's music playing. You go to any place, there's music is like almost all the time on. People get into their cars. What are the first thing they do? Turn the radio on. They listen to music. People go to work out. They put their earphones in. They listen to music, because music affects our state of mind and it affects our moods. So learning to listen to uplifting and inspirational music is very, very powerful. And experts even say that listening to classical music, you may not like classical music, but if you put classical music on in the background, for the most part, it's very light and it's kind of fun. It helps to lift your mood. So when I study, and I really need to study for a long period of time, I'll put classical music on in the background, and not really loud. I won't be blasting. It'll just be in the background, so that if in between thoughts, I can kind of hear it, and subconsciously I'm picking up on that. So classical music, if you've never tried it, put some on in the background once in a while, and you'll see how it affects your mood after a while. It really has a calming effect. And speaking of calming, next one, of course, I'm being a little bit biased about this because I happen to own a martial arts school, but that is to practice Tai Chi. And that's number one, or some form of martial arts. It's a great outlet for anxiety, for depression, for anger, all the things that can be negative in our lives. So practicing Tai Chi is a very slow-moving, relaxing exercise that helps to bring together your mind, your breathing, and your body and your movements, your upper body and lower body, and learn to take the tension from your body. So in depressed states or anxious states, a lot of times we hold stress in our bodies, and practicing Tai Chi helps to get rid of that. And plus, the deep breathing that we do, and also the music that's played. When we practice Tai Chi, typically we're doing that to music, which is very similar to classical music. If you listen to Tai Chi music and listen to classical music, you can see there's a connection there. And so practicing Tai Chi is very, very effective for helping with depression. If there's not access to Tai Chi, any martial arts will do, because every martial art has an internal aspect to it, and so that's something that I highly recommend as well. Next one, this might not sound like something you would ever think of, but that's get a massage. Getting a massage is a wonderful experience. You can get a massage in a chair, get one of those chairs that massage you like I've got here. Those are okay, but there's nothing like the human touch. And really to find a masseuse who really understands how to find the tension in your body and help relax it and release it. And sometimes that releases feelings and emotions along with it, because a lot of times when we're depressed, we hold that feeling somewhere in our muscle, in our body, and a muscle group might tense up, and it might manifest itself in a back pain. And having a masseuse who's really understands those kind of things can find that spot and release it. And it's a tremendously cathartic feeling when you get a great massage by the right masseuse. So if you've ever tried massage before and didn't like it, keep trying. Try male massage, female massage, try the Chinese guys in the mall. Go to a Massage Envy and ask to go get a short-term membership and ask to get a different one each time until you find somebody who has the right touch and understands what it is you're looking to do. Sometimes you want deep massage, sometimes you want more Swedish massage or relaxing massage, but anything is great. Other things like that, like a Reiki or craniosacral therapy, those are also great methods to help release some of those inner locked up feelings that we have in our bodies. Let's see. Next one, get a pet. If you already have a pet, you understand just the joy of having and owning a pet, how great that makes you feel, because your pet doesn't judge you. You come home from a long day, and your pet is usually there, especially if it's a dog, is wagging their tail and jumping up on the door to wait till you get in, and they're excited and they're running around the room. It just makes you feel better. Cats, I don't know as much about. I assume that there's some cats like that, but even the cat, they come around your leg, then they purr on you and wrap around your leg and things, and they just love on you. And having pets are great for helping us establish a better mood. If you don't have a pet or you can't own a pet for some reason, find a friend that's got a pet, or visit a kennel and go or a pet store and go see some pets. Just interacting with animals, because animals, especially cats and dogs, those are the two best ones. They exude love in many cases, and they can really do a lot for your state of mind. Next is, again, kind of sounds self-explanatory, but get out and go for a walk. If you go out for a walk and you go out and do it in a place where there's a lot of trees and there's not next to the street, go out into a park or go someplace where there's a lot less traffic and things, and just get out and enjoy nature, or go around your block and walk the neighborhood a couple of times. Just the action of moving your body. It's a very light form of exercise, but it does wonders for your psyche. So think about it, how many times when you get into a conversation on a phone, you pace back and forth. I mean, that's just ingrained into us when we're having a conversation, whether it's a good conversation or a bad conversation. If a good friend of mine calls up from the past, we'll often spend 45 minutes. I spent 2.5 hours on the phone with one of my friends recently, and that's all I did. I just paced back and forth, and it really kind of helps to bring the mood up when you're moving around like that. So instead of staying inside and sitting in the dark, get out and go for a walk. And it doesn't matter the time of year at all. But it certainly does help for my next one to tell you about getting some sun. There are people that live in Indiana, people that live in the Midwest. We have this thing called post-seasonal partum depression, something like that, or seasonal depression. I forget the actual. I think some of you understand what I'm talking about. But when we have weather like we have today, which is kind of gloomy and gray, and it's not really warm outside, and it's been raining. A lot of times when we do that for 3, 4, 5, 6 months in a row, that can be a major cause for depression. So you've got to learn how to get out and get some sun. I recommend if possible, it's not very expensive to get a ticket to Florida. Even the northern part of Florida is just a couple $100s. Go down and spend a weekend in Florida. Find somebody that that lives there, or go get in a Motel 6. They'll leave the light on for you, and go down there and spend 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Whatever you have, whatever time you have, and just get away from the hustle and bustle of what's going on in your personal life and in this nasty weather that we sometimes have, and get down and get some sun. There's a lot of ways you can do that as well. So getting out and getting some sun is great. If you can't get some sun, they have these special light bulbs called full spectrum lights. They have, I like to use them in my office here, and I like to use them at home. They have a light that is very close to the rays that the sun puts off, without the radiation. And so if you learn how to light your home up with, and your workspace up with, instead of fluorescent lights, those dim looking, cold looking lights, put some full spectrum light bulbs into these things, and it will help brighten your mood. It's a really strange thing, a strange phenomenon, but it really works. So that's the next best thing, is if you can't get out and get some sun. So at least getting around these full spectrum lights. Next on the list, I've already kind of talked about it, but just exercise. When I was depressed, as I said, I did not want to exercise. I lost weight without even trying, and a lot of weight, and it was amazing to me. I'm kind of like, wow, maybe I should get depressed again so I can lose weight quicker, but that's not a healthy thing to be doing. Trust me when I tell you this. I've had moments or times in my life where I'm working out really, really strongly and strictly, and other times where I'm not working out very much at all. The times that I'm not working out very much at all are the times that I feel the worst about myself and my situations. The times when I'm working out the most are the times that I feel the most optimistic about my life and the future and my situations. And so just get moving. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of, they say motion beats meditation. So instead of sitting back, and I know I told you meditation is a great thing, and it is, but understand here that motion beats meditation. Sitting around thinking about things and coming up with ideas and things is one thing, but getting into action, that's where many of us, we falter. And so we make plans and we think to ourselves, well, it's already October and the holidays are coming in. Why start exercising now? Because I know that I'm going to want to sit down and eat, and I'm going to go trick-or-treating with the kids. I'm going to be eating candy bars, and then Halloween's going to be over, and we're going to be eating Thanksgiving, and I'm going to be eating there, and then we're going to be getting together on Christmas, and then New Year's, and I'll start at the New Year. I'll start exercising. I implore you, don't wait for that to happen. Do the simplest things. I mean, start with something simple as walking around the block and making your goal every morning and every evening to walk around the block one time, and just do that. And then you'll want to do more. Maybe from there you add 5 push-ups in and 5 sit-ups and 2 squats, and you just start doing very minimal things. You will be amazed at how much energy and vigor you get from that and how that starts to affect your thinking. When I go to the gym, I love to run on the elliptical machine because it's very non-threatening. It doesn't hurt your knees. I can't think of the term for it right now, but it doesn't hurt your joints, and so it's a great thing to exercise on. I always have my phone there, and it never fails. When I get into exercising that thing, within 5 minutes of me exercising, I come up with all sorts of creative ideas and inspiration to get into later that day that never would have occurred had I not stepped onto that machine in the beginning. So walking does the very same thing. You don't have to have an elliptical machine to do that. I just happen to like it because I can use upper and lower body and put resistance into it. But honestly, you can do the same thing walking uphill or walking downhill. Or walking up and down steps. So just any kind of exercise is great. And again, Tai Chi and martial arts can serve that purpose for you. Next one, and again, this kind of goes right back into the martial arts as well, but even if you're not interested in martial arts, learn to set goals and work at achieving them. And that's one of the best things about martial arts is we have these belts, white belt to black belt, and those belts are basically our goals wrapped around our waist so that they're in full view all the time. And so when you're a white belt, you realize you're at the beginning, but your goal is to get to the yellow belt, and that's what keeps you coming back when you don't feel like coming back because you want to get ready for this test. And we keep doing that all the way to black belt, and that's a really simple process. But you can do the same thing in your own life, but you've got to have goals. Maybe if you're feeling depressed, the first goal is to not feel depressed anymore. So that's a big goal for some people. And then you work backwards and say, now what would the steps be needed? What steps would be needed for me to make that a reality? That can be how simple your goal is. But if you have other goals in your life, you want to get out of debt, which is a major source of depression for a lot of people, you can do the same thing. Set your goal to get out of debt and then stop doing the crazy things that keep you in debt and figure out 4 or 5 different things to get out of debt. And I'll teach you a method in one of my upcoming episodes where I got out of $70,000 of debt in 1 year. I did that, and so anyway, I did it through this very same way. I decided that I was going to get out of debt in 12 months. I put a time on it, and I worked back and decided these 4 or 5 steps that I was going to take, and it was very simple, but I did it, and I got myself out of debt, and I realized if it ever happens again, I could handle it again. And guess what? It did happen again when we had this big fiasco back in 2011 and 2012, and I was able to rebound from that as well using the same technique. But you've got to have those goals. Okay, and work at achieving them. Not just have a goal, but work at achieving them. That's what really turns our brains on. Next is hang out with a friend. You know, when I was depressed, the last thing I wanted to do was to be around other people. But you've got to learn, you've got to find that one friend or 2 friends that you just enjoy being around. And try not to find friends who are depressed like you are. Try to find friends who are enjoying their lives, enjoying life, and get around them. And just if nothing else, just ask them to hang out in their living room with them for an hour or two and let them live their lives, and you just be around that positive energy. There's a lot to be said for who we associate with. So birds of a feather stick together. So if you want to change the flock you're with, you've got to change the people. You've got to look around and say, okay, who's keeping me in this position? Who's keeping my mind down here? Who shares that mindset with me? And spend less time with those people. Help them out. When you become more positive and you're experience less depression, then go back to that person and help them out of it as well. Somebody's got to make the move, though. Okay, next one. This is probably a pretty easy one, but actually in this day and age it's difficult sometimes, and that is get more sleep. It's a proven fact, and the number constantly changes, but they're saying between 7 and 9 hours. That's a sweet spot for most people. Many people, when they're depressed, might sleep longer than that, 10 hours or 11 hours. So if that's the case, then you don't need to worry about that one. But sometimes the depression comes from not knowing how you're going to pay the bills, or your girlfriend broke up with you, or something like that happened, and you want to spend time dwelling on it. So you go to sleep and you wake up and you think about it, and that's probably the worst thing that you can do. So learn to get more sleep and learn to recover, because your brain operates differently and it operates a lot more efficiently when you've had sufficient rest. Okay. Next one, and this is a big one. This is one that many of you may not consider, but that is this: forgive other people. Learn to forgive and let go. There's a lot of people that get sick. They get major diseases and things, and it's proven that even cancer sometimes can be caused by harboring resentment towards others. And so you have to learn how to be a forgiving person. When you forgive somebody, a weight is lifted off of your shoulders that you no longer have to carry. If you're walking around with a pain in your heart, you're hurting and you're angry with somebody because of something they said to you or did to you or whatever, they're probably not even aware of, they're not being affected by that at all. You are the one that's harboring that. You're carrying that around, and that can further depress a person. So learn how to live, forgive, and let them live. If they make mistakes, that's their mistakes. Maybe, hopefully, they come to a realization they've done some wrong to you, and they come back later to apologize. I mean, any human being with any feelings and any conscience will do that. But if not, that's their deal to live with. You don't have to make it yours. So learn how to forgive other people. It sounds like it's really difficult sometimes, but it's really simple. But by just saying, I forgive you. Practice by, even if you're lying to yourself a little bit in the beginning, I forgive you for X. Say it out loud 3 or 4 or 5 times, and say it once or twice a day like that for the next couple of weeks, and pretty soon you'll work into that ability where I actually think I can forgive this person. A lot of times forgiveness or lack of forgiveness comes from not understanding the other person's point of view or being in their shoes. And so sometimes, there's a lot of things going on in our world, in our community, that I don't agree with, but I can certainly understand it, right? So, for example, road rage. I don't understand why somebody would just shoot at somebody in a car. I've been angry enough to do that, but, I would never do that. But I can understand why somebody might get to the point where that would be a reality for them. So I understand it. I don't agree with it, and I certainly don't condone it. But that's just a really simple example of it. So people have different thought processes about what's important and where priorities should be placed, and maybe they differ from yours. Learn to understand that everybody's not like you. Everybody's not like me. I understand that. And so I can forgive a person for acting a certain way or behaving a certain way towards me as long as it's isolated. And if it's ongoing, then I have to blame myself for staying around that. So either way, I can forgive that person and forget about it and just not spend time around them. But that I think a lot of us hold in resentment and harbor resentment towards people far longer than we need to. We need to learn how to get over that and forgive other people. There's something that happens in your heart when you forgive people, and genuinely from your heart when you can finally do that. So that's a big one, I think. Next one, you're already doing it. Listen to positive podcasts. Listen to people that are solving problems. Listen to people who are talking about things that matter. Listen to people who are giving you advice that is hopefully going to help you become better at something. And learn to enjoy those kind of things. Instead of listening to just music in your car, I encourage you to listen to what do they call, not public speakers, positive motivational speakers and things. Anthony Robbins comes to mind. You may like him, you may not like him. There's Zig Ziglar, who's the late great Zig Ziglar. If you don't like Anthony Robbins, you're probably going to like Zig Ziglar and Dr. Wayne Dyer and Deepak Chopra and all these other people out there. And there's male and there's female, there's older, there's younger. Listen to those things. They will help to uncloud your thinking and get you out of these states of depression. But it's about flooding yourself with positivity. If you're married, you've got a spouse that's determined that they're going to be mad at you for, let's say, 2 days. They're going to really hold tight to that. The other spouse is able to somehow break through and get them to laugh. If you can get them to laugh, you can break their state of mind, and they're no longer angry at you for that entire 2 days. I remember doing this myself on a couple of occasions, determining I'm going to be mad at this person for the entire day. And then they were able to joke and get me to smile, and then suddenly all that melted away, and all the anger that I felt or resentment that I felt was gone because they got me to laugh. And so that's one of the things that I encourage you to do. Go to a comedy show or watch comedy on Netflix or look it up on YouTube. It's free in many cases, but there's nothing like being there live, surrounded with a bunch of people in a good mood, and they're all laughing. So that's a great one that I suggest that everybody can do. Next one, my wife is very good about this one, and that's to place plants and flowers in your home and work areas. Plants and flowers help to lighten your mood, and they're living beings, living organisms, and so they give off oxygen, which helps make us feel better, and they just brighten up the place. So if your work environment or your home environment looks very bland and dull, that's an easy way to kind of get into a wrong state of mind. So putting plants and flowers into those places, I mean, what woman doesn't love getting a dozen roses? It really brightens up her day. Think about what that can do for you as well. And if and the roses kind of come and go quickly, but you can certainly get plants that you can plant, flowers that can stay inside and stay year round. Just having that in your home or in your place of work can do wonders for your state of mind. Next one is help somebody else. There's probably no other better way to come out of a funk, to come out of a state of depression or some bad mood than by getting in and helping other people. That's why so many people go on missions trips and they go help out downtown with homeless people and give blankets and things. They do it to help those people, but actually it's the more important thing they get out of it is how does it make them feel. So think about that and learn. There's probably somebody within your sphere of influence or your circle of friends that needs some help of some kind. If you go to their help or go to help them out, it will do wonders for your state of mind, and it can help bring you out of a state of depression as well, very, very quickly, by the way. And then next, of course, this is very self-explanatory, but smile. There's an old phrase that says, fake it till you make it. If you smile enough, just practice smiling, you can't be angry after a while. You can't be sad after a while. Just smiling releases endorphins in our brain, and that's the stuff we don't want to hear about when we're in a bad mood, but there's so much truth to it. So if you can get yourself to smile and just practice smiling. Fake it till you make it. If you're not in a good mood, pretend you're in a good mood, and before long, you will be in a good mood. Okay? And this is one that probably many people didn't think. This is the last one, and this is one that I try to use myself, and that's to simply walk faster. When you walk faster, it makes you feel like you're on the hunt. You're in the hunt. You're in the mode of accomplishing something, even if it's just going to your car or going from your car to your home. Learn to walk faster. It helps to, again, it's a form of exercise, and it helps to release endorphins and makes you more creative and more positive and gives you a positive outlook. So those are the 19 steps of dealing with depression. And I'm going to give you the 8, I think it's 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 steps or 8 things that you definitely want to avoid doing if you happen to be in a depressed mood or you know somebody dealing with depression. Try to keep them from doing these things. And number 1 is try to avoid posting your negative feelings online on Facebook. Think about that for a second. A lot of people do that to get attention, and they're looking for attention, and they should get attention. But think about it in your own life. If you see that from somebody else, how does that make you feel towards that person? Of course, you feel a little empathetic towards that person, but if you repeatedly see it, it gets to the point where nobody likes bad news. People just don't like hearing about how somebody else is having a bad day today, and it becomes a bad week and a bad month and a bad year, and it's a consistent thing with somebody. Once in a while, a good rant or rave online is okay, but if you look at your posts and you see that a good percentage of them fall into that category, delete those posts and start disciplining yourself to not do that. Instead, tell those things to your parents. Find a coworker that you can talk to. Find if you're employed by a boss, talk to your boss. Go to church and go to confession. Find the priest and talk to the priest. There are people that are equipped to deal with that can help you. Putting it online will drive people from you. So I want to really encourage you to not do that. Second one, try not to catch yourself slouching or frowning and showing on your face that you're in a bad mood. Again, fake it till you make it. If you're in a bad mood and the smiling works just like frowning. If you frown and you turn your brow down and you look sad, pretty quickly you're going to feel sad. So you've got to learn how to control your body language and facial expressions so that you can control what's going on inside. So the internal is controlled by the external, and the external is controlled by the internal. They're integrally locked and linked. And so if you can learn to smile and learn to sit up tall, you can learn to control your state of mind. And that's a very, very important thing to be able to do when you realize that you've entered a depressed state of mind. Okay. Number 3, again, these are probably a lot of self-explanatory things, but it helps to be reminded of them. And that's don't sit in the dark. It's very tempting when you get into a gloomy mood or your depressed state to turn the lights off and sit in the dark and kind of your mood matches your surroundings. The surroundings match your mood. So that's a very true thing. So you don't want to, in order to come out of that, you don't want to keep doing that. You want to turn the lights on. Get into a bright environment, and pretty soon you will start adopting that attitude of being bright, and you may not be ecstatic, but you'll not be quite as depressed feeling. Okay, number 4, don't sit home alone. When you're feeling depressed, the tendency is, and I went through it myself, is you don't want to be around other people. That's the time where I think you really need to be around other people. And it depends on what kind of group you're going to get around. That's up to you. But I recommend getting around a group of people that are positive and uplifting, that will kind of push you and kick you in the butt and tell you to get with it and things like that. Because when you need to hear those things. And if you get around certain people and they stroke your ego, or just kind of stroke your hair and, oh, it'll be okay, those things can help out. They can really help out. But you want to get around sometimes people that'll kind of challenge you to break that state of mind and move into a happier state of mind. And it's kind of like Abraham Lincoln said, and he said most people are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. There's a lot of truth to that. So again, these are not cure-alls. They're just things that can help if you happen to be experiencing some of these things. Obviously, this should go without saying, but I'll say it, and that's, don't watch sad movies. If you're in a sad mood and you're in a depressed state of mind, the worst thing you can do is to add to that by watching sad movies that have sad endings. Watch comedies. Watch things that have inspirational stories to them, where there's somebody's overcoming an adversity. Those are things you want to fill your mind with, and not the other way around. And that's the same thing with music. That's the next one. Don't listen to sad songs. If you listen to songs about breakups, a lot of country music, unfortunately, is about how the dog, left you, the wife left you, and they took your car from you, and they're very sad songs. And they even have the sad crying guitar sound with the steel guitar. Get away from those kind of things when you're in a bad mood. Learn to enjoy. Listen to something from the 70s or 80s. It's bubblegum pop, something that's uplifting and inspirational. Listen to some of the songs on the Karate Kid soundtrack. I mean, you're the best. That song, you're the best around. I mean, think about that. How you can't stay in a bad state of mind when that song comes on. Okay, next one. Don't read sad books or sad poems. That's not the time to be reading Edgar Allan Poe. You know what I mean? Or sad books that deal with sad subjects like death and people leaving you and things like that. Learn to read things that are positive and uplifting. I recommend a magazine called Success Magazine, and it is filled to the brim with great articles that you can read one article and then leave it and come back the next day and read an article. You can read a small one, you can read a 3-page article, and it can do a lot for your state of mind. And it also comes with a CD that's included that you can listen to in your car with interviews of successful people of all walks of life. It's great to be listening to those kind of things. And the final suggestion I'm going to say as far as don't do, and that's try not to dwell on the negative side of life. Don't dwell on the bad things that are happening. Try to dwell on the good things that are happening. As I mentioned in the beginning of my podcast, a tornado hit our school back in 2002, and at that time I thought I was finished. You talk about depression. I thought I was totally finished at that point. I remember saying those exact words. I'm finished. I had no insurance, and I had no way to pay for that. That's when I went $70,000 in debt. It was a miserable time for me, and all I wanted to think about was I can't see anything good in this. But I'll tell you, a couple of great things came out of that. Number one, I got a chance to show my students what perseverance is all about. That was the smallest thing. And so I said, okay, there's a goal I'm going to set for myself, and that's what I did, and that's how I came out of that state of mind. I decided, I've got to learn to lead by example here. How can I be standing in front of a group of martial artists telling them to have indomitable spirit if I'm allowing my spirit to be dominated by this particular situation? So that was my first small goal that I used to bring myself out of that. Next thing that happened really good out of that situation was we got a brand new building built from inside out. And then the third thing was there was a really crappy looking car wash that had been out of use for probably 10 years. It was out in front of our plaza, and a really rundown apartment complex and a village pantry. Again, very rundown looking things that got destroyed by the tornado, and they never got rebuilt. So in the midst of all that stuff happening, there were a couple of good things as well. And so that's what I chose to focus on. I remember as things were being rebuilt, I was thinking, well, at least I have to look forward to. That car wash is now going to be gone. It's not gone right now. It actually looks worse out there. It looks like a disaster zone out there. But actually right now, or in 6 months, that won't be there anymore. So that was something to look forward to and to focus on the positive of it. So you just have to get used to looking for those little strawberries in a situation, and that's going to take some practice. But if you keep doing it and you just look for the smallest little thing, you'll start identifying them a little bit sooner. So that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed our podcast. If you did enjoy the podcast, please like and share it and let us know your thoughts. Until next week, I'm James Theros.